So, friends, the first session for today's conference is going to be presented by a wonderful lady called Kate. Kate is from San Francisco, and in today's lineup of teachers, she is the most senior teacher in our tradition. She has about 30 years of association with this tradition. She was introduced to this tradition back in 1991. And through the Colgate University India Study Group project, that's when she first came to India and met Sir Desikachar. And she has studied Sanskrit and comparative Asian mythology in Berkeley University. And she's currently pursuing a master's in fine arts in creative writing as well. And Kate is the founder of the Healing Yoga Foundation based in San Francisco, a project that she started many years ago to honor the teachings and to honor her teacher, Sri TKV Desikachar. I've also been very privileged to be associated with that for many years. And also, very importantly, Kate's doing a fantastic project through the Commonweal Foundation, where she's teaching yoga to people who are affected by cancer through different stages. And that's going to be one of the topics that she's going to talk today. And Kate's presentation is going to be about the philosophy of healing, how Patanjali's Yoga Sutra and yoga therapy are connected. And she's going to start in a few moments. And to just say one last sentence, Kate lives in San Francisco with her husband and 4 amazing children. So on to Kate now. Namaste. Yes, Kate.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. And I want to begin with gratitude and appreciation for my teacher, Sri TKV Desikachar. My first experience with yoga in 1991 was as a tool for healing. The yoga I learned from Sri Desikachar helped me to heal from a terrible accident. It helped me to heal from physical injuries, and then later from other past traumas, both mental and emotional. In 1995, I witnessed firsthand how yoga supported the healing of my beloved mentor, Mary Louise Skelton, through her dying process from cancer. And yes, I just said healing and dying in the same sentence. Mary Lou showed me how healing is possible at so many levels, even when facing one's own death. And this is what inspired me to shift my focus away from academia and ask Sri Desikachar to teach me everything he could so that I could support others in their healing through yoga, particularly those facing cancer, as Mary Lou had been helped. It is my privilege and my great joy to share some of what I have received from my teacher in honor of his birthday. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. I'd like to start by giving you a brief introduction to yoga's approach to healing and my hopes and goals for those I work with, regardless of their diagnosis or their prognosis, and then provide you with some practical examples and an experience of some of these tools, which can be done anywhere and anytime, that you can start practicing and sharing with others today. In chapter 2 of the Yogasūtra-s of Patañjali, the text outlines a model for healing many of you may be familiar with. The heyam is the suffering we want to neutralize, often the symptoms we may be facing or are struggling with. The hetu is the cause of those symptoms, which we may or may not know. The hanam is the goal, and this is to reduce the experience of suffering and to feel better. And finally, the upayam are the means, which are the tools and the strategies to help us attain this goal. And I use this model for healing not only with all of my students, but also in many areas of my life as well. Of course, one of the most wonderful things about yoga is that there are so many practices and tools and strategies to choose among, so that the practice can and should be, of course, adapted to each person's individual needs, abilities, and interests for maximum benefit. Some of the reasons why yoga is such a powerful support for healing, no matter what the condition. And then we'll go into some more specifics of how I apply some of these tools for people specifically facing a cancer diagnosis. To start, yoga is an ancient system of healing. Many of you know this, designed to support each level of the human system, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Yoga is particularly effective as a support for healing, as it recognizes that the human system is comprised of several overlapping dimensions: the physical body, the breath, the mind, the personality, and the emotions. As such, whenever we experience pain or illness at one dimension or one level, the other dimensions are also affected. So for example, when I stub my toe, I have a physical experience of pain. And as a result of that, my breath will likely shift to tightened, shallow, maybe rapid breaths. My mind might start racing and worrying if I've broken my toe or if I need to go to the hospital. Or depending on my personality, I might adopt an attitude of I'm fine, or denial, or maybe the other end, maybe hypochondria, I'll never walk again, etc. And I may experience an emotional response, such as maybe an outburst of anger or anxiety or fear, or certainly a shift in my mood. So yoga understands that just as when one dimension of the system is impacted or affected, so are all the others. Yoga offers many different tools to help support each of these levels, recognizing that a tool addressing one level will often influence and support the other levels of the system as well, so that multiple dimensions of the system are supported simultaneously. So for example, gentle and appropriate physical movement can not only help reduce pain, improve flexibility and so on, and also reduce other physical symptoms, but it can also help the breath become steady. It can help the breath become more calm. It can help focus and quiet the mind, and it can help even shift our emotional state. Just as intentional breathing can help reduce physical pain and other symptoms, it can also focus the mind, and it can help us influence our emotional state. And other tools such as progressive relaxation, meditation, visualization techniques, and other practices not only help us focus and quiet the mind, but can also then result in less physical pain and other symptoms such as stress and anxiety, shifting our emotional state as well. So as an example of how simple yoga tools can support every level of the human system, I'd like to share one of my favorite, and in my experience, one of the most effective yoga practices for healing. So I pretty much teach this with everyone I work with. So I thought you know, with me wherever you are. So wherever you are, I hope you're sitting comfortably. Find a comfortable spot. You can have your eyes open or closed, whatever you prefer. And we're going to start with something that I just call relaxed diaphragmatic breathing or relaxed abdominal breathing. So you can actually be lying down or sitting, however you're most comfortable. And you're just going to start by, if you're able to, or if it's comfortable, place a palm on your abdomen and just start by noticing the breath. Just, I know everybody says that, right? It probably sounds like nothing. If you're not familiar with these practices, which most of the people who I work with facing cancer aren't that familiar, you know, or if you were like me back in 1991, you know, you might even roll your eyes a little bit like, what are you talking about? Noticing the breath. But I want you to just hang with me for a second. The breath is always with you. You never have to worry about leaving it behind or forgetting it. So it's one of the most powerful practices you can do on the bus. You can do waiting at a stoplight, waiting in line at a store, wherever you are. And it has remarkable, just this simple, relaxed diaphragmatic breathing can have remarkable impact. So start again, place a palm on your abdomen, and I want you to just try to keep the mind focused on the subtle movement of the breath. That's probably a better, more specific way of saying, try to notice the breath or keep your attention on the breath. So just notice the feel of the breath. And if at all possible, try to notice when you inhale, if you keep the abdomen really soft and relaxed, that as you inhale, the abdomen slightly expands or rises if you're lying down. as the diaphragm naturally moves down. And then as you exhale and the diaphragm naturally moves up, the abdomen softly contracts, softly falls. So just try with the palm on your abdomen, try to notice that subtle movement of the abdomen expanding or rising on the inhale and softly contracting, gently contracting or falling on the exhale. And just try that for a few breaths. Go at your own pace. Most importantly, nothing is forced. You're not doing it incorrectly. Keep the breath nice and easy, nice and smooth. And just try to keep the abdomen as soft as you can and allow that abdomen to expand on the inhale and softly fall on the exhale. Just a few more breaths at your own pace. Nothing forced, nice and easy. Just trying to keep the focus of the mind on that subtle movement of the breath as the abdomen gently expands on the inhale and softly contracts on the exhale. So you can do that anywhere, right? Nobody even knows. You can keep doing it while I'm talking. I hope you keep doing it while I'm talking. Nobody even has to know that you're doing it, and it can have profound effects. In fact, I bet you maybe already feel a little bit better. I hope you do. Maybe you feel a little bit more relaxed, perhaps a little bit less anxious. Maybe you've forgotten about that pain that was nagging or bothering you earlier, or the thing you were annoyed by. Even if you didn't notice a difference at the physical level or notice a shift in any other level of your system, the practice of relaxed diaphragmatic breathing or just relaxed abdominal breathing, you can call it either thing, helps support the system at very subtle and powerful levels. So as I tell my students, I have 3 goals when I'm working with them. The first goal is I want to empower each of my students, I want to empower all of you with simple, practical, accessible tools and techniques to help reduce pain, manage symptoms and side effects so that you feel better, no matter what, at every level. Number 2, my hope is also to help support immune function and overall health by trying to support the parasympathetic with the autonomic nervous system. There's the parasympathetic, which is the relaxation response, or the sympathetic, which is the stress response. And we're usually very good at firing the stress response. I'm very good, I'll say that, at firing the stress response all the time. And so if we can keep this in mind, that whatever practice we do, we want to try to support the parasympathetic or the relaxation response, this can help balance out some of the firing of the stress response that I know that I'm doing unconsciously more often than I'd like to be doing. And so this is one way we can help support our overall system and immune function by trying to keep that in mind, that we always want to be supporting that relaxation response to help keep the autonomic nervous system in balance. And we'll talk a little bit more about that happens later. And the third goal is to help you connect. This is my favorite one, of course, and in my opinion, the most important, but help you connect with that quiet inner resource of strength and wisdom, of deep peace and great joy, that place of your own shining, radiant light that is uniquely you, the place that I call your own true, authentic self, that authentic self that is always there within you, no matter how challenging it may be, no matter how dark it may feel or seem or actually be around you, so that no matter what your circumstance or situation is, you can come to a place where even if you can't change or influence your current situation, which sometimes we can, that you feel empowered to, and in fact, can influence your experience of that circumstance. Did you get that? This is Yoga Sutra. This is the goal of Yoga Sutra, right? And I use it with every student as an important part of that healing. That no matter the circumstance, that ultimately, through connecting with this place of your own true authentic self, and there are many, many tools in Yoga Sutra that help us to do this, we are then able to feel empowered to consciously influence our experience, no matter what the situation is, even when we can't change the circumstance. And as a result, we are then able to reduce our experience of suffering. And that helps us feel better, right? That helps us feel better, no matter what the situation, no matter what the diagnosis, no matter what the prognosis. This is the goal of yoga. And this is, of course, why yoga was so helpful with Mary Lou, for example, who I started with that example in her dying process, how it really, there was healing for her in that, because she was able to connect with something much deeper, a much deeper part of herself beyond her diagnosis, beyond her physical body, even though she very much wanted to live longer and be alive. So we know this is possible. So relaxed diaphragmatic breathing is a simple practice that helps support each of those three goals. Helps you feel better physically, mentally, emotionally at every level, helps support the parasympathetic or the relaxation response, and it helps you connect with that authentic self. Even if you didn't notice any change doing that relaxed diaphragmatic breathing, for sure it was helping you at these other levels. Maybe you didn't even notice, or maybe you don't even know what I mean yet by this concept of authentic self or true self. But I didn't when I first started, when I was first introduced to yoga. And some of these very simple practices are what helped me get there. And for sure, I know that it helps support that parasympathetic. So in my experience, working with people with cancer over the last 25 or more or so years, yoga is particularly supportive for those facing a cancer diagnosis, as the symptoms and challenges one often faces when dealing with cancer range from a variety of physical symptoms to mental and emotional stresses and concerns. So, for example, with this model of support for each overlapping dimension of the human system, my goals with those facing a cancer diagnosis, or more specific goals in addition to those top three, are, let's say, for example, at the physical level, I would use gentle movement, conscious breathing practices that might help with flexibility, strength, circulation, immune support, and pain and symptom management. At the breath level, there are many supportive breathing practices that can help reduce pain, as well as support immune function. Hopefully we'll have time, I can share a couple of those in a little bit, and also help reduce depression, anxiety, and some other mental and emotional symptoms. At the mind level, meditation and visualization techniques can help reduce pain and other symptoms, as we talked about, and also at the physical, mental, and emotional levels can help shift mood and whatnot. So one great strategy that I like to share with all of my students facing cancer is a practice that I like to call the witness practice. And it's a great introduction to meditation. I'm also looking at the time. Well, let's do it. It'll be fun. This is a practice that I find particularly helpful for the students I work with who are facing a cancer diagnosis, because it helps them separate, it helps them to really notice the different levels of the system and begin to separate what is happening to them physically from how they might be feeling, emotionally, from even just the activity of the mind or what's going on in their mind. And so let's give that a try too. I'm going to explain it briefly, and then I'll guide you through a short experience of it, very abbreviated, but it'll give you the idea. So I would love it if you would continue with that relaxed abdominal or relaxed diaphragmatic breathing, or any relaxed breathing that feels most comfortable for you. So again, just try to find a comfortable place. You can be sitting or standing. You could be standing, but I meant to say lying down. You could be sitting or lying down. You could have eyes open or closed. You could really do this one anywhere also. And it can be quite short, as I'm going to give you an example today. And what I'm going to do is talk you through just trying to successively focusing the mind on different levels of the system. So I'm going to start with the physical body and just have you notice how the body's physically feeling. Then we're going to shift and I'm going to have you notice the mind and what's going on in the mind and ask you about that. And then we'll shift and have you notice whatever feelings are present. And then I usually end with having you just noticing your energy level. So I did not make up this practice. This is not something for me. It's something that many different traditions and many different wonderful teachers have. I that Kausthub talked about how Sir made these connections with different spiritual teachers. He was very open and appreciative of what other spiritual teachers were doing in the world. And so this is a practice that I'm confident many other spiritual traditions use. In fact, I believe that John Kabat-Zinn has used some form of this with his work with mindfulness-based stress reduction. I think he calls it a body scan. It's a little bit different, but there are lots of other versions out there. Just full disclosure on that. There are two important things about this, is that the breath is the connection throughout. And I'm also constantly reminding you when you do this that you're trying to observe without judgment. And this is really important. And if I remember when we're done, hopefully I'll remember to share you why at the end that's so important. So let's start with this practice. Again, you can be sitting or lying down, hopefully breathing comfortably, nice and easily, nothing forced. You can have eyes open or closed. And as you feel ready, we're going to start at the physical level. And I want you to start by noticing how your body is physically feeling at this moment. How the body is physically feeling at this moment. And you could start at the top of the head if you like, and just gradually bring your awareness down from the top of the head to the jaw, to the shoulders and the neck. Maybe down into the arms and the elbows, just noticing how the body is physically feeling at this moment. And here's the key, without any judgment, without wondering why or what to do about it, or just noticing without any judgment. Oh, that's there. Once you've noticed the arms into the hands, and then shift the awareness, bring it back to the trunk of the body, gently bring the awareness down the front of the body, into the rib cage, into the stomach, and then the abdominal area. And then bring the awareness to the back of the body, from the back of the neck and the shoulders down, from the upper back into the middle back and the lower back. And again, I'm moving a little faster than I would normally, but you can do it pretty quickly too. So just taking note, just acknowledging what is present and true for you at this moment without any judgment, just letting it be what it is and moving on. Shifting the awareness again, bringing it down into the hips, into the legs, down into the knees, the lower legs, the ankles, feet. Just noticing how the body is physically feeling without any judgment. And then over the next few breaths, gently shifting the awareness to the mind, the level of the mind, and just noticing the activity of the mind. That's all. Just noticing. Are there many thoughts moving in and out of the mind at one end of the spectrum, maybe? Or are there very few thoughts moving in and out of the mind at the other end of the spectrum? Just noticing the activity of the mind, whether the mind feels very busy and full, or whether the mind feels more still. Again, without any judgment, just taking note, just acknowledging what is present and true for you at this moment, letting it be what it is, and moving on. Over the next few breaths, gently shifting the awareness to the emotional level. And again, just taking a moment as you're continuing that nice, soft, relaxed abdominal breathing, just noticing whatever feelings, whatever emotions may be present for you at this moment. Maybe they're feelings that have been known to you for some time or lingering for some time, or maybe they're just coming up into your awareness at this moment. Just allowing yourself to notice those feelings, acknowledge those feelings, whatever they are, without any judgment, letting it be what it is, and then moving on. And then over the next few breaths, taking note of your energy level, noticing if the energy feels high or maybe the energy feels low at the other end of the spectrum or anywhere in between. Just checking in and taking note. Again, without any judgment, letting it be what it is, and then moving on. And then finally, having checked in with each of these different levels of the system, just try to gently bring the focus of the mind back to the breath, back to the breath. And when the mind wanders, as it does for everybody, just notice it and try to gently bring the focus again back to the breath without any judgment. So if we had more time, I would have you practice that a little bit longer. And one of the reasons that, as I mentioned, I find it so effective for people dealing with a whole range of health concerns, but particularly for people facing cancer, I found it very effective because it, depending on who you are, well, I'll just give the example that I was thinking of giving. When I had my own cancer diagnosis 6 years ago, I had to undergo all this intense treatment and chemotherapy, and I got third-degree burns from radiation, and I had to take this other drug that my hands stopped working, and I had a considerable pain in my wrist and hands. And anyway, you get the idea. It's no party. And thank goodness to Sir and to my yoga practices and my practices of being able to understand these different levels of the system and to connect with something deeper, because then I was able to notice, oh, this is just something that's happening to me in this moment. It's highly unpleasant or incredibly painful, but it's just happening in this moment. And I sort of refer to myself as this living science experiment. And that helped me a lot, so that I could look at that, even though I was in incredible pain sometimes, and have sort of a curiosity about it or a wonder rather than feeling stuck. And then I had different tools to try at different levels. Even when I couldn't do my asana practice like I used to, I could do other kinds of practices with my breath or with my mind that helped with pain management and other things. And maybe we'll get to some of those in a bit. So I happen to love that witness practice that we just did, because it not only helps students connect with how they might be feeling at different levels. As I said, it's also a wonderful introduction to meditation, and just practicing focusing the mind and practicing some of these yoga tools without any judgment, which I find incredibly important. So again, no matter which yoga technique you choose most with you personally and or feels most supportive for your own specific goals, I always emphasize and ask those I work with to try to keep those goals of supporting the parasympathetic or the relaxation response, and also trying to keep that connection with the authentic self in the back of the mind. So as for the parasympathetic or relaxation response, I promise we talk a little bit more about it. No matter which tool or technique you choose, whether it's gentle movement, conscious breathing, reflective practices, or so on, trying to keep that relaxation response dominant is paramount. When we can do that, it helps support immune function, it helps support the nervous system, it helps counter things like adrenal fatigue and stress, which we know erode our health over time. And we can do that by making sure that the practice is appropriate and comfortable and that nothing is forced. And I particularly wanted to talk about this today because I tell my students, all of them, but again, especially those facing cancer, that my teacher, Sir, he always used to say, his motto, he said, was no pain, no pain. No pain, no pain. So one of the ways we can help support that relaxation response is not pushing ourselves past our comfortable limit by really listening and respecting the limits of our, our capacity and what's comfortable for us, and making sure that whatever practice we do is within our comfort zone. And then secondly, that connection with self, authentic self or true self, whether it is through movement, breathing, conscious deep relaxation, visualization, or meditation, remembering or even just entertaining the possibility of, which I say sometimes to my students, because I wasn't so sure what this was when I started. So either remembering that connection to authentic self or that something else, or just entertaining that that might be possible, that there could be something else beyond this body that I can connect to. This can be incredibly powerful. And I try to use neutral words that, again, were emphasized by Sir. Connecting with that quiet inner place, knowing that I am more than my diagnosis, more than this body, right? More than all these changes that might be happening, loss of hair, loss of appetite, not being able to do my practice, that you are more than your titles, your accomplishments, your accolades, or even your failures and mistakes, more than the car that you may drive or the house that you live in, right? We know this, but we forget. We forget. That no matter how dark it may feel or seem or actually be around you, that you have that capability to connect and act from that quiet inner place of your own deepest wisdom and inner knowing, of your greatest strength and resilience, and of your own deepest peace and your great joy, which is that place of your own shining, radiant light. Again, a theme in Yoga Sutra that comes up again and again and again. So finally, it's important to remember that these practices are meant to be not only practical, but accessible, so that you can do them anytime, anywhere. I remind my students, whether you're getting a scan, an infusion, waiting in line, whether you're at the doctor's office, again, in traffic, as I mentioned, and even 3 minutes a day, right, can be incredibly helpful and counts as a legitimate practice, right? We have these ideas in our head that our practice needs to be so much more, but even 3 minutes a day counts as a practice. That a practice is whatever we do to help support those goals, to help support our parasympathetic or relaxation response, help us to connect with self, and then ideally, right, that helps us to feel better. Okay, so I have a couple minutes left. I want to say, for those of you who know the Shitali breathing practice, that Shitali is the cooling breath, is one of those practices that I often teach my students who are facing a cancer diagnosis. I find it effective at multiple levels. It helps, and having gone through it myself, it can help with nausea. It can help with the fog of chemo brain, and help me feel more clear and connected. And most importantly, when I learned, it's incredibly effective at reducing inflammation. I've actually been talking with some of my colleagues trying to get more data on that out there and more studies done. But in my experience with my students, and I feel like even if there's a chance, this is what I tell my students, that I'm not trying to make any false promises. Again, something that was a strong takeaway from my teacher, Sir, being transparent, but that, as Sir would say, we can try, we must try. And as long as it's comfortable and there's no harm in it, why not? If there's some chance that it can help reduce inflammation, that's good for all of us. And another practice that I use a lot is the practice of niyasam, of just very gentle, subtle sliding the thumb up and down each finger. And that I found this, again, especially for my students facing cancer, that this simple practice they can do when they're getting a scan, they can do receiving radiation, because it's so still, that it helps with pain management, incredibly. for pain management, which I find fascinating. Helps with reducing anxiety, is very calming. So those are probably the main tools that I use again and again with my students facing cancer. The relaxed diaphragmatic breathing, which I learned going through my own treatment. Also, most of the lymph is here around the diaphragm. So the relaxed diaphragmatic breathing also helps support the lymph system, which is incredibly important. And the witness practice, as I mentioned. And then I'd love to just give you 2 minutes, maybe less, of just a little bit of the Shitali and Nyasam. You could even combine them to close. And then maybe if people have questions or their comments, I'm happy to see if that technology works. But why don't we end with this? It's just, again, sitting comfortably, or you could be lying down. I'd love to give you another short experience of something, again, in honor of my teacher. He was the master of wanting to share these experiences. So sitting or lying down, wherever you're most comfortable, just have your hands relaxed on your lap. And if you want to try Shitali, maybe we won't go down that road because I want to be very respectful and mindful of the time. But if you know it and you want to practice it, that is all right, sorry, I'm going to shift my gears. We'll keep it simple. If you're able to curl the tongue, you are most welcome. If you are not able to curl the tongue, and sometimes I prefer it this way, just the mouth slightly open so that you draw the air in between the slightly open mouth over the teeth and the tongue. The jaw is relaxed. So chin is relaxed. You're going to inhale, drawing the air in, slightly raise the chin only if it's comfortable, close the mouth, exhale through the nose. Just a very simple version of this breathing practice. Very easy and relaxed. Either drawing the air in, do that slightly open mouth, exhale, close the mouth, exhale through the nose. And if you want to try it with the Nyasam as you inhale, and I'm holding my hands up so you can see them, but I'd like you to keep your hands relaxed and soft on your lap. As you inhale, and you could do the Shitali or not, just do your relaxed diaphragmatic breathing if you prefer. Slide the thumbs up the finger, gentle press, exhale, slide the thumb back down, open and relax the palm. Maybe I should do it like this. This is bad. Next breath, next finger, inhale, slide up. Exhale, back down. Third breath, slide the thumb up, the third finger, exhale, back down. Again, nothing forced, nice and easy. Inhale, slide up, exhale, down. So one of the other reasons I introduce Shitali to my students facing a cancer diagnosis is that two wonderful students, Sir of Sri Desikachar, Martin and Imogen, told me many years in Berlin, told me many years ago how they were using Shitali breathing for their students and their patients, their medical doctors, going through menopause. And one of the things with breast cancer, for example, and some other cancers, but breast cancer specifically, is that you're forced into early menopause. They call it turbomenopause in some of the hormone positive cancers. And so I've shared that with a lot of the younger women who I work with who've been forced into early menopause, who get these very intense hot flashes, and they have found relief from that too. So there's another reason that I do that. But the Nyasam, with or without the Shitali or any breathing practice, it helps with sleep. I encourage you, if you're not familiar with it, to try it. I have students who have tried it on the bus, before a meeting, at a podium, giving a talk. I could have been doing it, talking to you all this whole time. I wasn't, but I could have. So most profoundly, in closing, yoga teaches that while we may not be able to change or influence our circumstance, as I mentioned, or i.e. our diagnosis, if we're working with people with cancer or whomever we're working with, we do have the great power to influence our experience of that circumstance, thus reducing our suffering and then feeling better. Right? So I just want to go back to Yoga Sutra again and remind us of this goal. So no matter what our level of pain, our symptoms, our prognosis, or the outcome, these are just some of the tools that I use to help my students feel better at every level and help them to hopefully find some healing no matter what they might be facing. And I hope some of the practices have been helpful for you as well. As my teacher used to say, he would say, yoga is a rope. And it is my hope that it may be something for you to hold on to help steady you and to help you find your way home again whenever you need it most. So thank you so, so very much. With great honor and respect and deep appreciation for my teacher. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was just wonderful. And we are having so many nice comments coming for your talk. We don't have any questions yet, but I have one small question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And I think you're the right person to ask this question. What would you like to tell Sir today?
You know what? It's such a beautiful question because I might get a little bit emotional. I tell Sir this every single day, actually, which is thank you. Just thank you. I have such a beautiful life, and I feel so grateful for it. Even when I was in the middle of all those challenges in health, I felt so lucky. And even going through chemotherapy and all that hard stuff, I felt like I would still rather be me than most people even going through all that stuff, than most people I knew. And I was so grateful. I'm so grateful every day for everything I've received. It's saved my life and it's changed my life in such profound ways. So it's very simple. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I have my photo right here.
Thank you, Kate, so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.